Let me tell you something about ParkJimin that you already know, but somehow forget every single time. The man can stand in front of 70,000 people at Tokyo Dome, deliver a live vocal performance that makes professional musicians question their entire careers, execute choreography so precise it looks digitally edited, and walk off stage looking like he just stepped out of a fashion editorial. He is, by every measurable standard, one of the most polished performers alive on this planet right now. And this is the part that never gets old, he walks into a variety show set, a game with the most basic rules imaginable, and absolutely falls apart in the most endearing way possible. Every single time. Without fail. And we love him for it. That is the Jimin paradox. That is the thing that makes him not just a performer people admire from a distance, but a person people feel genuinely, deeply connected to. Because the gap between Jimin on a world tour stage and Jimin losing his mind over a blindfolded pillow fight is so wide, so absurd, so completely real. It reminds you that underneath all of the artistry and the discipline and the years of training, there is just a guy. A chaotic, dramatic, fully committed, absolutely unhinged guy who cannot help himself when the games begin. And Run BTS 2.0 just gave us proof of that all over again. If you are watching this, and you are new to ARMY, or new to following Jimin specifically, I want to make sure you understand the full weight of what just happened with the release of this episode. Because to someone on the outside looking in, a pillow fight in a vacation house sounds like a minor piece of content. It sounds like filler. It sounds like something you watch while you're eating breakfast, and then forget about by the time you close the app. But to anyone who has been following BTS long enough to understand what Run BTS actually represents, and what it has represented for the past decade, this is not filler. This is the whole point. Before we get into it, let's talk about what this moment actually means, because if you've been around since the beginning and you just need someone to put it into words, this is worth slowing down for. Run BTS is not just a variety show. It never was. When it launched back in 2015, it was BTS doing what they've always done best, being completely themselves in front of a camera and trusting that ARMY would love what they saw. And ARMY did. 155 regular episodes. Over 140 million views on YouTube. 10 special episodes after that, another 130 million. A single episode, one episode about flying yoga, hit 30 million views on its own. These are not the numbers of a side project. These are the numbers of something that genuinely matters to people. Think about what it takes to sustain that kind of viewership across more than a decade. It is not production value. The show has always been relatively simple in its setup. It is not the concept, because the concept is just BTS playing games. It is the people. It is 7 specific people, with a specific dynamic that cannot be replicated anywhere else, being themselves in a context where there is no performance pressure, no set list to execute, no choreography to land. Just a game, a camera, and the chaos that results when you put these particular 7 people in a room and tell them something is at stake. And then it stopped. For 3 years, there was no Run BTS. There was Run Jin, which was wonderful in its own right. Jin coming home from mandatory military service and immediately throwing himself back into content with the same energy he's always had. Jin hosting a show by himself, being exactly the person he has always been, proving that the personality that made him iconic in Run BTS was not a product of the group context but something that existed entirely on its own. People loved Run Jin, but it wasn't the same as all 7 of them together. Nothing is the same as all 7 of them together. ARMY knows that. ARMY has always known that. The thing that makes BTS what it is, the real thing, the irreplaceable thing, is that specific combination of 7 people who have known each other long enough to be completely unguarded, completely chaotic, and completely themselves in each other's presence. So when the Run BTS 2.0 announcement came, when BTS sat down on camera on March 30th and started brainstorming ideas for a revamped version of the show, when that teaser dropped and ARMY got to see all 7 of them together in a planning meeting that felt casual and real and unscripted in the best way, it wasn't just excitement about a show coming back. It was something more than that. It was the confirmation that the reunion era is real, that the world tour is real, that the comeback is real, and that the version of BTS that ARMY has always loved, not just the polished, arena-filling version, but the version that argues over room assignments and loses their minds over games, that version is back too. Now, the episode. Let's talk about what actually happened in episode 1, because it sets up everything you need to understand about why the zombie pillow fight became the moment everyone is talking about. The premise of episode 1 is simple. 7 members, 1 house, a trip. That's it. That's the whole setup. And in the hands of any other group of people, that would be unremarkable. 7 people on a trip, staying in a house together. Fine, normal, nothing to see here. But these are not 7 normal people. These are 7 people who have spent years developing a group dynamic so specific, so layered with inside jokes and long-standing rivalries and running gags and genuine affection, that putting them in a house together and pointing a camera at them is essentially guaranteed chaos. The production team knows this, BTS knows this, and ARMY definitely knows this. The setup does not need to be complicated because the people are the complication. It starts with the room selection. The house has 3 bedrooms. 1 for 2 people, 1 for 2 people, and 1 that can fit 3. Simple enough, right? Just pick a room. Except nothing with BTS is ever just anything. The members have to choose their rooms one by one, based purely on instinct, without knowing who else has already chosen what. What follows is the kind of psychological warfare that should not be possible over something as low stakes as sleeping arrangements. Members are second-guessing themselves. Members are reconsidering at the last second. Members are trying to read each other's faces for information they cannot actually obtain. And the result, the beautiful, completely predictable result, is that 4 members end up crammed into a 2-person room while Jungkook, moving with the quiet confidence of someone who has never once doubted a decision in his life, secures the large room entirely for himself. Jin and Jimin end up sharing a room, which, if you know anything about the Jin and Jimin dynamic, tells you something important about the energy of this episode before a single game has even been played. Jin, who operates at all times like he is both the host of the show and the most important person in the room, who even in this episode had Jimin insisting that Team Jin always wins, as though that is a fact about the universe and not just something Jin has been asserting for years. And Jimin, who in the words of people who have watched this show for years, is Gravity's favorite person, meaning he is always, somehow, ending up on the floor. These 2 sharing a room is not a small detail. It is a setup. It is the show telling you what direction the energy is going to go before the game even starts. But the room selection is just the opening act. The main event comes after dinner. And this is where things get genuinely unhinged in the best possible way. The game is called the zombie game. The mechanics are straightforward. Some members are designated as zombies. Some are designated as citizens. The zombies have to find and catch the citizens. Simple enough, except the zombies are blindfolded. They cannot see. They have to navigate the space with their eyes covered, arms out, moving based on sound and instinct alone, trying to locate people who are doing everything in their power to not be found. And the stakes? Whoever loses has to clean up after dinner. That's the punishment. Dish duty. Which sounds minor until you realize that for these particular 7 people, the competitive instinct kicks in regardless of what is actually at stake. And suddenly dish duty feels like the most important thing that has ever happened. This is a pattern that anyone who has watched Run BTS long enough will recognize immediately. The prize or the punishment is almost never the point. BTS could be competing for a bottle of water, and they would approach it with the same intensity they'd bring to something that actually mattered. It is one of the things that makes the show so consistently entertaining, the gap between how high the stakes feel to the people playing and how low the stakes actually are is always enormous, and BTS never once seems aware of that gap while they are in it. They are always fully inside the game. They are always completely committed. And Jimin, specifically, is always 100% in no matter what is happening, which is part of why his moments in these games tend to be the ones people clip and save and rewatch. What happens in the zombie game is what variety content is made of. Zombies stumbling through the space with their eyes covered, moving in those slow, exaggerated, desperate motions that come from not being able to see anything. Citizens pressing themselves against walls, holding their breath, trying not to laugh, which is essentially impossible when you are watching your friends walk directly into furniture. The game devolves, as all Run BTS games eventually do, into something that looks less like a structured competition and more like organized chaos that everyone is fully committed to. One floor battling the other. V, who has always had an almost supernatural ability to escape things in variety games, navigating the whole situation with the calm of someone who was built for exactly this. Jin attacking with fierce determination despite being on a different floor entirely. J-Hope, by all accounts, not fully understanding the rules at any point but screaming and reacting with full commitment regardless. And the pillow fight that erupts out of it, spontaneous, physical, completely joyful, is the kind of moment that you cannot script. You cannot manufacture this. Either the chemistry is there or it isn't. With these 7 people, it has always been there, and episode 1 of Run BTS 2.0 proves that 3 years and mandatory military service have not changed that by a single degree. Now here's what I want you to think about when it comes to Jimin specifically, because this is the part that matters if you are someone who has followed his trajectory over the past year. We just watched Jimin perform at Tokyo Dome, April 17th and 18th, 2026. Tokyo Dome holds 55,000 people, and both nights were sold out. The Arirang World Tour is not a small thing. This is BTS at the peak of their reunion era, playing stadiums across the globe, and Jimin is at the center of it. His live vocals on the Arirang setlist have been a constant topic of conversation since the tour began, and at Tokyo Dome specifically, his performance generated the kind of reaction that gets clipped and shared across social media for weeks. The precision, the control, the moments where he stripped everything back and just sang. No staging, no distraction, just the voice. Professional musicians watching from the audience, talking about it afterward. Fans in the seats describing it as something they did not expect to feel as deeply as they did. That is one version of ParkJimin. That is the version the world sees when the lights are on and the stage is set and 70,000 people are watching. And then there is the version that shows up in Run BTS. And here's the thing that I think gets overlooked sometimes in all the conversation about Jimin's artistry and his performances and his impact. The Run BTS version of Jimin is not a departure from who he really is. It is not a mask he puts on to seem relatable. It is not a PR-managed moment of calculated authenticity. It is the same person. The competitiveness that makes him push himself until a performance is exactly right is the same competitiveness that makes him take a pillow fight entirely too seriously. The expressiveness that makes a stage presence so magnetic is the same expressiveness that makes his reactions to losing a game so entertaining to watch. The emotional honesty that makes his live performances feel so personal is the same quality that means he cannot hide what he is feeling even when what he is feeling is absolute panic about a zombie coming toward him with a blindfold on. This is what Run BTS has always understood about its own value. It is not a break from BTS. It is an extension of BTS. It shows you the people behind the performances, not in a way that diminishes the performances, but in a way that makes them mean more. When you watch Jimin lose himself in a song on a stage in Tokyo, knowing also that this is the same person who falls over in zombie games and argues about room assignments and commits completely to every ridiculous game regardless of what is at stake, that knowledge makes the performance feel more human, more real, more his. And that is exactly why the return of Run BTS 2.0 matters as much as it does right now. Because we are in a moment where BTS is bigger than they have ever been. A world tour across multiple continents, a critically received album, a Netflix documentary, magazine covers, collaborations with some of the most respected names in music. The scale of the Arirang era is enormous. And in the middle of all of that scale, Run BTS 2.0 is the reminder that the people doing all of those things are still exactly who they have always been. Still arguing over rooms. Still losing their minds in variety games. Still completely incapable of staying composed when one of them does something funny. Still exactly them. There is a concept in Korean fan culture called the gap, the contrast between someone's public image and who they actually are in unguarded moments. It is one of the most talked about qualities in K-pop, and for good reason, because the gap is often what turns casual interest into genuine investment. You can admire someone's talent from a distance, but when you see who they actually are when there is no stage, no styling, no choreography, that is when the connection becomes real. Jimin has arguably one of the most dramatic gaps in all of K-pop. The distance between Jimin the performer, precise, controlled, devastating in his emotional delivery, someone who can make an arena of thousands feel like he is singing directly to each individual person, and Jimin the person who is currently being chased by a blindfolded zombie in a vacation house is genuinely enormous. And every time that gap is on display, Every time he goes from something devastating on a stage to something completely chaotic in a variety context, it does something to people. It makes them feel like they actually know him. Not the version that exists in press releases and production-polished music videos, but the actual person who showed up to this house, picked a room, ate dinner with his members, and then found himself in the middle of a pillow fight that started as a cleaning duty game and somehow became the highlight of the week for millions of people watching at home. This is not accidental. Jimin has never been someone who approaches variety content as a performance. He is not playing a character in Run BTS the way some entertainers play a character on talk shows. Curated, calculated, hitting marks they have rehearsed. What you see in Run BTS is what is actually there. The panic is real. The competitiveness is real. The laughter is real. The falling, and there is always falling, because gravity has a specific and very personal relationship with ParkJimin, is very, very real. And it is exactly this quality, the inability to be anything other than himself, that makes him one of the most compelling people to watch in this format. What is also worth noting, and this is something that gets lost when people talk about Run BTS purely in terms of entertainment, is how much this show has historically functioned as a record of these 7 people's relationship with each other. Every episode is a document. It shows you how they talk to each other, how they compete with each other, who makes who laugh the hardest, which alliances form, and which ones collapse under the pressure of whatever game they're playing. Over the years, Run BTS has given ARMY an almost unparalleled window into the actual dynamic of the group. You can learn more about how BTS actually functions as a group of people from watching a few episodes of Run BTS than you can from reading interviews or watching music videos, because this is the context where they stop performing for the camera and just exist in front of it. And 3 years away from it means that the dynamic has evolved. Not in the fundamental ways, because the fundamental chemistry is clearly still intact as episode 1 proved almost immediately, but in the ways that come from growing up. From the experience of military service. From the time that has passed. These are 7 people who went through mandatory military service at different times, who spent periods apart that they had not experienced before, who came back to each other as older versions of themselves. Run BTS 2.0 is going to document that evolution in real time. It is going to show us how the dynamic has shifted, what has stayed exactly the same, what new things have developed in the space that was created by time and experience. Episode 1 is just the first data point, but it is a very promising first data point. The zombie pillow fight is not a throwaway moment. It is a data point. It tells you something specific and important, that whatever else has changed, the ability of these 7 people to create absolute joyful chaos out of a simple game is completely, perfectly unchanged. The blindfolded stumbling, the desperate physical comedy, the pillow fight that erupts out of it, not because the game called for it exactly, but because that is where the energy went when you put these particular people in a room together and take away their ability to see. You get chaos, you get laughter, you get the specific and unrepeatable thing that is BTS being BTS when nobody is performing and everybody is just playing. And Jimin, who has never once in the history of this show been able to play it cool, who has a relationship with gravity that the laws of physics seem personally invested in, who commits to every game with the full force of someone who trained for years to do everything at 100%. Jimin in the middle of that is exactly what you expect, and also somehow better than you expected. Because that is the thing about him. You think you know what you're going to get, and then you get it. And it is still funnier and more genuine, and more completely him than you were prepared for. There is something almost mathematical about it. The more polished Jimin is on stage, and he has been extraordinarily polished this entire tour, the more delightful it is to watch him completely abandon all composure the moment a game starts. The contrast does not diminish either version of him. It amplifies both. It makes the Tokyo Dome performances feel more impressive because you know how much work and discipline it takes to be that controlled. And it makes the zombie game chaos feel more endearing because you know how capable he is of holding it together when it matters. These 2 versions of Jimin are not in conflict. They are the complete picture. The Arirang era has given us a lot of Jimin moments to hold on to. The Tokyo Dome performances, the album tracks, where his voice does things that seem physically improbable given what the human voice is supposed to be able to do. The collaborative work with his members. The moments in the documentary that showed what the process actually looked like from the inside. the conversations, the pushback, the creative decisions that went into making an album that actually meant something to the people who made it. These are all significant, and they all deserve the attention they have received. But Run BTS 2.0 Episode 1 is giving us something different. Something that is in some ways harder to replicate than a great performance, because at least with a great performance you can train for it. You can work toward it. You can build something deliberately and shape it over time until it is exactly what you want it to be. What you cannot manufacture is the authentic, unscripted, completely specific chemistry of 7 people who have been through everything together, walking into a house and immediately becoming the most entertaining room on the internet. That is not something you can rehearse. That is not something you can produce. That is either there or it is not. And in Episode 1 of Run BTS 2.0, it is absolutely, undeniably there. It is there in the room selection game that turns into psychological warfare. It is there in Jin and Jimin ending up as roommates and Jimin insisting that Team Jin always wins. It is there in Jungkook securing the best room with the serene confidence of someone who simply operates at a different frequency than the rest of the group. It is there in the zombie game, in the blindfolds and the stumbling and the desperate physical comedy. And it is there in the pillow fight that comes out of it, spontaneous and joyful and completely, perfectly them. It is there. It has always been there. And Run BTS 2.0 Episode 1 just reminded the entire world of that in the most delightful way possible. There are 2 more episodes already scheduled, Episode 2 on April 30th, Episode 3 on May 5th. And if Episode 1 is any indication of the direction this season is headed, we are in for something genuinely special. Not just because the games will be funny, though they will be. Not just because the moments will be shareable, though they will be. But because this show, at its best, has always been about something more than content. It has been about documenting a specific group of people at a specific moment in their lives, in all of their chaos and competitiveness and affection and absurdity, and letting ARMY be present for that in a way that no other format allows. The Arirang World Tour is rolling through North America starting at the end of this month. The stages will get bigger. The productions will get more elaborate. The performances will continue to be the kind of thing that people talk about for years. And in between all of that on YouTube, for free, 7 people will sit down together every week and play games and argue and laugh and fall over and compete with a level of intensity that is completely disproportionate to the actual stakes. And it will be the most human thing about this entire era. We are in the reunion era. The world tour is happening. The album is out. The stages are sold out. And somewhere in between all of that, 7 people checked into a vacation house, argued over who got which bedroom, played a game about blindfolded zombies after dinner, and ended up in a pillow fight that felt like a homecoming. Nothing has changed. Everything is back. And ParkJimin, performer, artist, Gravity's eternal nemesis, the person who will commit to a variety game with the same totality he brings to a stadium performance, is exactly where he belongs. In the middle of all of it, fully committed, completely unguarded, and absolutely himself. That is what Run BTS 2.0 is for. And Episode 1 delivered it perfectly. Not because everything was perfectly produced, or because every game mechanic worked flawlessly, or because it was the most technically sophisticated piece of content BTS has ever released. It delivered because it reminded everyone watching of something they already knew and needed to be reminded of, that these 7 people, together, are something that does not exist anywhere else in the world. That the chemistry is not a product. It is not a brand decision or a management strategy. It is real. And after 3 years away, you can feel the difference the moment they are all in the same room again. If you haven't watched the episode yet, it is free on the Bangtan YouTube channel and on Weverse. No subscription required, just go watch it. And if you have already watched it and you are here because you needed someone to explain why it hit the way it hit, or why a pillow fight in a vacation house feels like such a significant moment, I hope this helped. Drop a comment and let me know what your favorite moment was from Episode 1. I want to know what got you. Subscribe if you're new here. We cover Jimin and BTS content regularly, and there is a lot more coming as the Arirang World Tour continues into North America and beyond. See you in the next one.